Ukrainian Nightmare, the capture of Serhiy Tkach. Welcome to The Most Evil, where we delve into the minds of history's most notorious serial killers. Today, we delve into the chilling case of Serhiy Tkach, a Ukrainian serial killer whose reign of terror shook the nation for over 2 decades. Serhiy Tkach's story begins in the picturesque landscapes of Ukraine, a country steeped in rich history and tradition. Born into a modest family, Tkach spent his early years amidst the rolling hills and quaint villages that dotted the Ukrainian countryside. Despite the idyllic surroundings, Tkach's upbringing was far from conventional. From a young age, Tkach exhibited signs of troubling behavior, often withdrawing into himself and displaying a lack of empathy towards others. As he grew older, these tendencies only seemed to intensify, casting a shadow of unease over those who knew him. Despite his outwardly normal appearance, Tkach harbored dark thoughts and impulses that would ultimately lead him down a path of unimaginable horror. Raised in a society grappling with the aftershocks of political upheaval and economic uncertainty, Tkach's formative years were marked by instability and hardship. As Tkach navigated the complexities of adolescence and young adulthood, he found himself increasingly drawn to the darker aspects of life. He became fascinated with stories of violence and death, delving into the morbid realms of crime and depravity with a disturbing intensity. Despite the warning signs that surrounded him, Tkach's descent into darkness went largely unnoticed by those around him. To the casual observer, he was just another face in the crowd, a seemingly ordinary young man going about his daily life. But beneath the facade of normalcy lurked a cold and calculating mind, driven by impulses beyond comprehension. From 1984 to 2005, Tkach committed a string of horrific murders, targeting women and girls across Ukraine. His victims, often vulnerable and unsuspecting, fell prey to his depraved desires, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. In total, Tkach was convicted of the murders of 36 innocent lives. Tkach's modus operandi revolved around exploiting the vulnerabilities of his victims, preying primarily on women and girls who he perceived as easy targets. One of the key aspects of Tkach's methodology was his ability to blend into society, appearing unassuming and non-threatening to those around him. This facade of normalcy allowed him to gain the trust of his victims, often luring them into his web of deceit with promises of companionship or assistance. Once he had gained their trust, Tkach would then proceed to isolate his victims, often leading them to remote or secluded locations where he could carry out his atrocities away from prying eyes. This careful selection of locations ensured that Tkach could operate without fear of interruption, allowing him to exert complete control over his victims. Tkach's crimes were characterized by a chilling level of brutality, with his victims subjected to unspeakable acts of violence and degradation. Despite the horrors they endured, Tkach showed no remorse or empathy for his victims, viewing them as nothing more than objects to be used and discarded at his whim. In addition to his calculated approach to victim selection and isolation, Tkach also employed various tactics to evade detection by law enforcement. He meticulously covered his tracks, disposing of evidence and manipulating crime scenes to throw investigators off his trail. This careful attention to detail allowed Tkach to evade capture for an extended period, further perpetuating the cycle of fear and uncertainty that gripped the communities he terrorized. The investigation into Tkach's crimes spanned over 2 decades, with law enforcement agencies working tirelessly to bring him to justice. Despite the challenges they faced, investigators remained determined, tirelessly pursuing leads and gathering evidence to build a case against the elusive killer. The breakthrough in Tkach's case came as a result of tireless investigative work and the cooperation of multiple agencies working in tandem. After years of frustration and dead ends, investigators finally caught a break when crucial evidence surfaced, linking Tkach to the string of unsolved murders that had plagued the country for years. With this newfound evidence in hand, authorities launched a massive manhunt to track down Tkach and bring him to justice. Their efforts were met with success when Tkach was apprehended in a dramatic raid on his hideout, surrounded by a team of heavily armed officers. Tkach's capture sent shockwaves through the nation, as the full extent of his crimes was finally laid bare for all to see. For the families of his victims, it was a moment of bittersweet closure, as they finally saw the man responsible for their loved ones' untimely deaths brought to account for his actions. Following his capture, Tkach was swiftly brought to trial, where he faced a jury of his peers and the full weight of the law. Despite his attempts to protest his innocence and evade responsibility for his crimes, he was ultimately found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The psychological analysis of Serhiy Tkach revealed a deeply disturbed individual, driven by dark impulses and a complete disregard for human life. His legacy is one of horror and tragedy, leaving behind a legacy of fear and trauma that continues to haunt the communities he terrorized. In conclusion, the case of Serhiy Tkach serves as a sobering reminder of the depths of human depravity and the importance of remaining vigilant against the forces of evil in our midst. While Tkach may be behind bars, the scars he inflicted upon his victims and their loved ones will endure for a lifetime.
If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content on true crime and psychological analysis. Remember to stay vigilant, and until next time, stay safe.